welcome to another weekly update. I'm back from ESPC. I'm back from the Call and Contact Center Expo. I'm back at home. Great couple of days. Lots and lots of good contacts, good catching up with people, some great sessions, had a really good time. Yeah, lots and lots of things happening. This week, we have some announcements to make, kind of some of which happened last week. But actually, everything I'm going to talk about this week is from a blog post I did, which is quite good because it means I must be blogging again with some more regularity, which is good because it's kind of a muscle I should not forget how to use. All right. First thing, this came out kind of it came out during last week, and we talked about it a little bit last week in the last week's update, but I did want to write it up with a bit more information, and that's the Teams app test bot. This is a new thing for emulating using bots in Microsoft Teams. So currently we have the bot framework emulator. This is a kind of a replacement for that, and there's a couple of reasons why you might want to use it instead of the bot framework emulator. Firstly, it's fast. It's really fast. In my testing, there was basically no delay between me sending a message and getting the response back. The other big reason you'd want to use this is you can do activity mocking of events in Teams. And this is all because this tool is very specifically for Teams bots, whereas the bot framework emulator is it's much more generic around the bots that you might build for Teams. You might build them for Teams, but they might also be for lots of other channels as well. And so that's why you don't get some of this sort of specific mocking of activities for Teams that you do here. So this is cool. I really like the fact that you can customize the activity that gets sent. So if you've got very specific things you're looking for in your code, particular channels maybe, or something like that, you can pick up on it. It supports things like break and debug as you'd expect. What's really nice is that it's all now built into Visual Studio Code Toolkit, the toolkit for Microsoft Teams. You do need to get the pre-release version if you want to try it today. But when you do that, and I've talked about this in the blog that I did, you can see here, when you do that, every new project that you create in the Teams toolkit, it's got updated documentation for using this Teams app test tool. So already they've updated the documentation. So that's really nice because it gives you a place to start from if you're using the Teams app tool for the first time. I think it's really good. I wish I'd had this a couple of weeks ago when I was doing some bot building, but never mind. But if you're building a new project today for Microsoft Teams bots, I would give this a go for sure. It's a lot easier for getting some of that Teams specific stuff around people installing your app or joining channels or anything like that, or putting your bot in different places. Those messages that you get, those events, it's going to be a lot easier to mock them here than to do what we had to do previously, which was to install the thing into an actual Teams environment, sideload it in, and then wait for those messages to arrive, and then sort of have to do that kind of debugging where you're writing like values out in logging and then just trying to work out what's going on because you haven't got break and debug anymore. Okay, so that's one cool thing. Another cool thing, SharePoint Embedded. So this got announced actually at ESPC whilst I was there. I was there in the audience when it got announced, which is exciting because I've got a photo for the blog. So here it is. So this is SharePoint Embedded. I've written up a whole blog post about what this is, but basically if you're an enterprise developer or you're an ISV that sells into enterprises, you'll know already the struggle around what it's like trying to get stuff like okayed in the corporate environment, especially where you're storing data and especially where you're storing user data. For all sorts of good reasons, there are lots of checks and balances and there's lots of governance that goes on there. What SharePoint Embedded aims to do is make your life easier by saying, well, why don't you just use Microsoft 365 as your data store? We'll give you some APIs to store your own data and we will manage all the security and compliance. And then IT admins, it's kind of good for them because they already trust Microsoft 365, right? So they're not getting another attack surface. You're, as a developer, you're just using APIs and storing your data inside Microsoft 365. There's some other advantages for doing this as well, because your data will then be covered by things like Microsoft 365 Backup, things like the audit and e-discovery, things like the Microsoft 365 Semantic Index. So if your users ask Copilot stuff, it can index your information and give you good answers. So this is actually already being used. This whole concept, this SharePoint Embedded concept, is already being used by Loop and it's already being used by Microsoft Designer. So it's good to see some first-party applications using it because that kind of also means that Microsoft are going to look after it, they're going to iterate on it, and they're going to make sure it stays up. It is a consumption model, so I put all the details about exactly how much it costs in the blog post, but it's a consumption per call model and per call and also storage. So just some working out to do to figure out whether it's cheaper or more expensive than the solution architecture you had planned already. But obviously this takes away the need for a storage repository and an API to access that storage repository. You're essentially using the API that Microsoft give you to store and retrieve your data, and then you still run your front end, your business logic through a website or whatever. So that's kind of an interesting model. It's worth looking into if you're building for the enterprise, because I can see this being something that enterprises will really like, because it takes away a lot of those governance questions. Means less hoops for developers to jump through as well, in trying to get their stuff accepted as well. So that's all good. Another blog post, this one about the recording and transcript APIs. We've talked about these quite a lot recently, the recording and transcript APIs for Microsoft Teams meetings. They got announced that they were going to be chargeable as they went into, I think, GA or maybe public preview, that they were going to be chargeable, and we had a particular price. They've just updated the pricing. So from January, 1st of January next year, that pricing is going to be 90% cheaper. They've literally slashed the price by a tenth, which is mad. It's very good. It's like, if you're already using this, if you already factored in your ROI and this made sense, this makes even more sense. My gut feel is that probably Microsoft have received feedback from somebody, or enough somebodies to say that's way too expensive, we're not going to use it. Because at scale, you can imagine if you've got lots and lots of meetings, you can see how this would really rack up. So, big discount in pricing. Good news for everyone, I think. Just one thing to be aware of. Obviously, this shows that Microsoft is not afraid to make big changes to pricing. I guess there is no reason really why they couldn't make a 90% change in the other direction. We hope they wouldn't do that. But just one to be aware of. So pricing on this has just changed a lot. So maybe worth revisiting. And finally, one more thing before I go. Sorry, if you're on the video, you'll know I've got like a cough and a cold and just generally under the weather. I think it's the travelling, maybe. But we're all right. So I'll just try and cough when I'm muted so I don't disturb you all. Anyway, one last thing to tell you about. It's nearly Christmas, apparently. So I want to refer you again to my blog post from 2020 about how to use OBS to create a Christmas countdown and a snow scene for your next video call. So this isn't just Teams. You could do this on Zoom. You can do this on anything really, as long as you have OBS. But you could do something like this, which you can see on the screen. So that blog post has got all the instructions on how to do that. And should be good. All right, I'm going to go because I can't stop coughing. And so I should probably stop talking. Whatever it is you're doing this week, I hope you feel better than I do. Hope you have a good week. And I will talk to you again next time.